Good morning and welcome to the morning call for Wednesday, the 26th of April 2017. ASX is likely to play a bit of catch up today, considering yesterday was Anzac Day and we were completely off. Having a look at what's happened not only on sort of Monday night but also last night over in European indices and also US indices. It's a very positive lead. What I really want to highlight before I get off international markets, US earnings season is absolutely outstanding at this point in the cycle. Yes, there's still a reasonable way to go, but over 40% report this week, and we are still sitting at an average of EPS line beating consensus by 80% and revenue beating consensus by 62%. That is actually above normal. And normally you see roughly around about sort of 60 to 62% on the EPS line and just above 50, more around 55% beating on the revenue line. So that's a real stellar result, and that's certainly a standout. The other thing you're going to hear a lot over the US over the next couple of weeks is clearly Trump's tax plan is coming. There's a lot of questions about it. It's still very, very opaque, but it is there and something to also be cognizant of. Moving on and having a look at what I really want to point out today, CPI here in Australia is clearly going to be a very interesting figure. And the reason I say that is that there is that growing belief that underlying economic data in Australia is actually quite good, and it is. And today's CPI data on a trim mean basis, and that's the one you've really got to look at, is where we will probably start pointing to. If you look at year on year and quarter on quarter, there's some really good numbers. Year on year consensus is 1.8%. That is a fraction away from their target band of 2 to 3%. And if you look at quarter on quarter, it's supposed to grow by 0.5. That'll be the second best quarter we've had in the last year and a half. And that's also quite a positive thing on that perspective. It therefore also brings in two fronts, the RBA, the Aussie, and therefore looking at what you want to see from Philip Lowe. We know he's more hawkish than his predecessor in Glenn Stevens. We know that he is clearly talking about the fact that rates are not the kind of instrument that he wants to use. So I would have that as your base case. What I mean by that is that you are not likely to see any cuts, clearly, but I still don't think he's going to hike, but he's more on that path rather than anything else. And therefore, the second part of this and what that therefore means is looking at the Australian market. We know, and I continually talk to you guys about this, that the fact that 42 to 48% of the market is made up by financials, over 25% is made up by the big four. If you include Macquarie, it's just under 27, and they all report next week. And that needs to be something that's also in your mind, is having a look at what they say on future growth, organic growth, net interest margins, and particularly the housing-led recovery that is absolutely driven their loan book. So all of that is part of why today's CPI numbers are really important, because if you do move back towards that trim mean market of 2 to 3%, that is their core number one mandate. It therefore means that rate hikes are what you're going to hear about over the next 12 to 18 months, and clearly we already are, but that already puts that more pressure into it. The Aussie is still above 75 cents. Clearly, it's showing you that if we get a good CPI number today, that likelihood of moving it towards 76 is back on the cards, despite the fact that iron ore has clearly corrected, and positively so. I think it's actually more at fair value, and it may start ticking up in June. But all of that's why today will be quite interesting and certainly something to watch. Have a good trading day as always. I am back tomorrow. Tomorrow will be my last day, and I just want to give you a heads up. I am actually going on annual leave for a little while, but Chris and Gary will be here to talk to you about it, and we're always on the phones, 1-800-601-722. So have a great trading day. Tomorrow's my last day, and I'll go through a couple of things I want to look at over the 3 weeks while I'm away, and then from then, you've got Chris and Gary.